My name is Joel English. I'm the Executive Vice President of Centura Colleges and a former professor of English at Old Dominion University. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Poetry Through the Ages. This community that we'll be building online will explore poetry through each century since the development of the printing press. By looking at one poem every night, we'll be able to take a look at what made poetry special in each of the ages through time, especially since it's been put in writing and made for mass production through technologies. We'll talk about technology a little bit as we go, but mostly we'll read and enjoy poems, we'll write some of our own, and spend some time talking together about what makes poetry interesting, what makes it phenomenal, and why it's important for us to be able to express ourselves through poetic media. So I hope you're along for the ride. Each Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll meet for 1 hour and we'll have a little fun discussing poems together, doing a little bit of writing, and sharing with each other as we build on to lifelong learning here in the great city of Norfolk. What I'd like to do is start with a question. We're going to try to get to tonight, we're going to try to define for ourselves what a poem is. Now, that sounds like something we could do if we were all in a second grade class, right? What's a poem, kids? But it's an adult class, and we're going to get to it. And I'm going to start with an excerpt, and I'm going to ask you if this excerpt is a poem. Here we go. Farm equipment's important. Once more, that is, farm equipment is important. Is that a poem?
So, you're in my field of work, agriculture. So, for yes, me, farm equipment, something about farm equipment is poetic. The hard work that goes into using it, the cleaning of it, the putting it up, the shining it, it's all very poetic to living your life, to making a living, to putting food on the table. So yeah, farm equipment is important, is poetry.
Uh-huh.
So you have
Yeah. Good. I'm wrestling with that. That was a really that answer was so good. I don't even think you can understand how good that answer was, because it made me have more questions. But James, go right ahead.
yeah, sorry. I was going to say it's a sentence and it doesn't rhyme, and so it's challenging my notion of a poem. I watched an hour and a half long video where this pure musical genius had asked the same question to different levels of collaborator. He asked a 5-year-old, a 12-year-old, and then like various levels all the way up to some sort of who was it? Some really high end jazz guy. All of them, he asked the question, "What is harmony?" And so he got a different level of answer depending on the person and where they were.
Yep.
And he made a lot out of it. And so I suspect you're going to do the same with your question here. What is a poem? And I'll be on one end of the bell curve where I, others may answer differently. What is a poem, and is that a poem?
Yeah.
In a way, I think it has a little bit to do with intent. Obviously, rhyming. I was joking about that. I think it has to do with intent. Is there something more than information? And I think it may have to. I think, to me, and I'm not answering your question about this particular example here, but I think a poem does something more than information.
Aha, aha, aha.
And I don't know what, but I think it has more there, more purpose than just information.
Got it. Got
And
it.
that's where I was thinking
Go ahead.
along the line of the emotion. I mean, to a farmer, farm equipment is important is poetry because they have a different emotion connected to those words. To me, those words are a statement. It's a statement. It could be a fact or it could be, whatever, but to someone who has a different experience with those words,
Yep.
they may be more poetic or their connection to it is one of, this place of that rhythm and that rhyme and that kind of flowing that we would associate with poetry.
Yes. Yes. Rashida, are you saying this piece of language, farm equipment, is important? Are you saying it has the flow, something about that language that would be marked, that would mark a poem, or is missing that?
For me, it would be missing it
Mhm.
because my connection to it is not,
Yeah.
you know, that of a farmer, but to a farmer or someone who works in agriculture or who has a different connection to farm equipment, they may look at farm equipment as having more of a life
Yeah.
than just a functional thing. They would look at the sounds and the appearance and the movements, and they would have a different that they take on a different form to that person.
Yep. Yep.
And
That's a
so they're
great. I
yeah,
really
they're
like that
trans
comment.
oh, okay, thank you.
I mean, I like it that you don't think that this is a poem for you. I like that because um, I think there's a lot of poetry that isn't for me. It doesn't do anything for me. I don't like it.
Mm.
If I were a farmer, I would like the directness and how spare this particular poem is.
You didn't say
If I were a farmer,
yeah.
It's not much less than a haiku. Come on now, people. Just a couple more lines. We got a haiku here.
Oh, I love that you went haiku on me. Exactly. Now listen, let me just stop there because Lisa Renee, thank you, James, Lisa Renee, and Rashida. Great, great responses. Lisa
Hey,
Renee,
Joel, if I just might interject something really quick. We have a chat going on if you're interested in it.
I have looked at it. Yep, I'm
Okay, okay.
with you. Yep, excellent. Yep. So Lisa Renee, your first comment to me was really, really interesting because if I tried to summarize who said yes, this is a poem, who said no, this is a poem, I'm going to just oversimplify and say Lisa Renee said yes, James and Rashida said no. I think, and I know that's way oversimplified, but that's kind of what I got from you. And with Lisa Renee's yes, it went deeper. See, she springboarded from the text in front of us. Farm equipment is important. 4 words, that is merely a statement. To her experience. And the more Lisa Renee spoke about her experience and some truth in there, the more I was drawn into her language, but it wasn't necessarily in the statement here. I, I almost want to say what Lisa Renee started to do with this language was turn it into a poem, even if it weren't a poem right now. So if I were answering the question, I would side with no. I would say no, this isn't a poem. It seems to be missing something. And what I want us to do together is try to figure out what it's missing, or that is to say, when we think of what a poem is, what is it that we think it needs to have in order to be a poem? We're going to do that. Now, this slide, this the question, what is a poem anyway? I have not filled out, so I'm going to end my slideshow and I am going to make it large for us. And we are going to build this slide ourselves. And this is going to be our class slide. And if anybody shows up next time, I'm going to make sure they have this slide, this answer to what a poem is that we're going to build here together. So if for whatever we thought the phrase or the language farm equipment is important, whatever we thought it might have been missing, let's see what it does. What does a poem need to have in order to be considered a poem? What do you guys think?
So for me, the farm equipment was a poem because I automatically started visualizing the importance of the importance of the equipment, but the feelings that come when you see it all clean after a hard day's work, hanging on the wall. It's done.
Yeah.
You get to go in, you get to eat. That piece of equipment is clean, it's hanging, work is over. And my mind went to visuals. So if I can visualize something, it is much more poetic for me. I enjoy it more.
I agree. There's something, some sort of visualization, something concrete that helps me see something like that.
And I think not just seeing, but hearing and smelling, but being there.
Oh,
So it's all of the senses, I think, and it doesn't have to be all of them, but if it touches on various sensory experiences, I think it starts to shift it into the poem.
And isn't that crazy? Then you have to start thinking about learning styles. Are you auditory, visual? You know, what poems are going to affect you because of your learning style?
Yeah.
That in a way that kind of speaks to, I think I jumped, I was a slide or two behind, and I jumped ahead by giving you my kernel of a definition for a poem, in that it has something to do with more than the text. It does something more than the literal presence of the words there, and so in this case it took Lisa Renee somewhere visual, even spoke a little bit about values. So I don't know that perhaps most writing does that. Maybe I'm saying that's not, that's only territory of poems. Maybe it certainly isn't, but I mean a restaurant menu does that too, doesn't it?
Well, you know what though, but you're getting to something. There's meaning in there, but the poem versus let me not do the restaurant menu, but let's talk about prose, like a novel, right? There's meaning in there, but the poem addresses its meaning, let's say, uncommonly economically.
That's something I wanted to say. I have read various legal documents, and they are extremely precise. They really, really respect language and aim to choose a very, very precise word. And I think there's something to be said about scientific writing that does the same thing. It's very, very intentional.
Yep.
And that reminds me of poetry, in that economy or precision, maybe more precision than an economy of words to do whatever it is it's going to do.
Well, I think so. I think that's right. I think poems generally, it's common for people to say, "Oh, they're short," and generally speaking, I think they are short, and I would rather say economical, in that they're okay if they're vague about what the meaning actually is. A scientific document has got to be very clear about what it's saying. A medical document has got to be extremely clear and will go the extra mile in page length, right, to be clear about what they're doing. A poem, it's not quite as vital that you know exactly where it's coming from, and so it does it with feel and like you all said, senses more than it does with clarity. So I could say the piece of language, farm equipment is important, probably does, cares less about its artisticness than a poem would generally want to. Poem wants to be visual, it wants to be concrete, it wants to engage your senses. It's okay if it's vague because it's trying to get to a meaning, even if the meaning isn't completely clear. Interesting. James, you also said something, the very first thing you said about the poem, and I think you were kind of poking fun, but you said, that's not a poem, it doesn't rhyme, right? And all of us know poems don't have to rhyme, but there's something there about sound, isn't there? If we're trying to define what a poem is, what would we say about sound?
Maybe some sort of flow. It may not be rhythmic or rhyming or but there is a flow to it
Mm-hmm.
because it's different than when you're reading a story or a short story or essay or a legal document. With a poem there is something that pulls you through that text.
Yeah, something about cadence, maybe. I think that's what you're Rashida, you're calling flow. I might call cadence, but it's the same. We're really talking about the same thing. We're, it has something to do with. I don't know what that is though.
I think I do. Cadence gives us confidence as we go through it. We get it. We start feeling it. Now we know how to say it. We know the rhythm to keep with our voice. We know if we're reading to someone how we want that to sound. And if they maintain a certain cadence, let's say a 3-4 page poem, it's comfortable. When they switch up like a song does and go to a chorus, it becomes a little bit less comfortable and something that you have to work through, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah, I like the word flow because it suggests that it doesn't have to be regular, but there's movement involved.
Yeah. All of us know that poems, don't have they don't have to have end in lines with line breaks, but they most commonly do. They don't have to have stanza breaks, but they most commonly can. They don't have to rhyme, and it certainly doesn't have to be end rhyme. Of course, end rhyme is when I get to the end of the line, I make sure that my words will rhyme, right? But there's other kinds of rhyme also, like assonance, which is the repeating of vowel sounds, um, uh, um, or consonant sounds that are repetitive within the word. So even if it doesn't appear to rhyme, it really does communicate. But what we're really talking about is a thing called formal concerns. That is, the concerns of the form of it. Whereas if we were writing a novel, we would do whatever we did with language. We would have paragraph returns, but no line returns, and wouldn't concern ourselves with rhyme almost at all. Whereas poems try to do that. Did you know that rhyme was invented as a device for memory? Before there was writing, the reason we would end a poem with rhyming words was so that the reader could become an orator, could speak it back, and rhyming words help memory. If you think about the songs that you can remember, whether it's a hymn that you sung in church or a rock song that you sang when you were a teenager, one of the reasons that there are three main reasons you can remember that song. Actually, four. Number one, because there's rhyme in it. Two, because there's rhythm in it. Three, because there's a tune that goes along with it. And then, of course, the fourth magical one is because you were young back then, right? And your mind could actually remember things. But those poetic devices, rhythm, meter, rhyme, and even musicality helps us absorb it in the long-term memory, and helps it actually make its meaning. I agree with everything we have here. There's some kind of visual, there's concrete. I think concrete, I'm going to underline some important words. There's concrete, engages the reader's senses. Yes. There is meaning. I think that may be one of the most important things. And then there are formal concerns. I think we kind of named the most important thing. Anything else we want to say about poetry? Why we go to poetry? What makes a poem?
Well, in all of that, I think comes out voice, the writer's voice, and
Wow.
what that I guess what that story they're trying to tell, or and I almost think somewhere in there, I with that voice kind of lends to a poem being vulnerable, because you don't know how it's going to be received, or how it's going to be, if it's going to be understood the way it was intended or accepted, but it still is. That was all from the original question or answer, but the voice, I think, is something that a poem is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. That's very powerful. That's very eloquent, and I think voice is right. Let's say we did it. Okay, congratulations. We created ourselves some defining pieces of poetry. We said, all right, in a poem, we're going to expect something concrete, not abstract. We're going to expect the senses to be tantalized. That is, we're going to see, feel, hear, smell something that the author gives us. There's going to be some meaning there, even if it's vague. There will be some meaning. There will be formal concerns. Is there rhyme? Do we play with font? Do we have hard returns at the ends of lines? What is it that we do? Really making a visual construct out of the words rather than just prose that goes to the end of the line all the time. And there's something about voice. So with that, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go back to our original poem. Farm equipment is important, and with those pieces, we want it to be. What I want to do is revise this thing into a poem. So we're going to do some formal things to it. We're going to, which could mean ending lines, could be rhyme. We're going to do some concrete things to it. Farm equipment, to me, is not concrete. Farm equipment is conceptual. We want to make it specific. And then this meaning thing. Farm equipment is important, okay? And Lisa Renee picked up on that really quickly, probably because she identified with it in her work. But what I want to do is turn that piece of prose, farm equipment is important, into a poem. How would we do that? Anybody want to take a crack at it?
So I have a visualization that
Great.
if it were a poem, I would want it there no matter what.
Great. Give it to me.
So I'm tired. I'm sweaty. I just remembered I paid $800,000 for this piece of equipment. I'm hoping to God there's a good spring next year.
Yeah.
And when I look at the piece of equipment after I've cleaned it up that night, I think about Uncle Bill always liked chrome.
Good. So is that my phrase?
Uncle Bill always liked chrome.
Wow. I love that line.
That to me is really powerful. It's really visual. I mean, that one phrase weighs so much because each word is so packed. Uncle Bill, good Lord, who is this? Who is this? But he's an uncle, so you know he's important.
That's right. Let's see just that line. And Lisa Renee, sorry, you may not have been finished, and you probably weren't, but Let's just
No,
see.
I was done. That's
Okay,
the line I wanted in there. I just wanted to set it up.
good. So we're going to write just a little bit more, but before we do, I want to go back and see. Everybody remember the phrase Uncle Bill always liked chrome. Is there some sort of visualization, a concrete visualization there? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the chrome
Yeah.
definitely does it. I like
Yep.
it. Does it
Yep.
engage our senses, sight, sound, smell, feeling, even emotions? I would say,
Yes.
Uh, for
I,
me, sight and emotions.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You know, what, I'm going to go back and add one thing. Uh, I don't know if that made it better or anything, but what I did, I added this polish thing to make sure that my reader felt the sight, the sound there. Is there meaning there? I got to tell you, I have to go with yes. Uncle Bill always liked the polish of chrome. Feels to me there's meaning. It's economical. It might not be completely clear, but I feel that there's meaning there. That is really awesome.
So
Former,
I would change to maybe the shine of chrome.
okay, because I had that.
For me, because again, that's what Rashida was saying. That's voice.
Yeah, great.
That's shine. I love the shine too.
Yeah,
And it instantly makes me feel like seeing him in that shine.
yes,
Um, because there's something really powerful that comes to just that imagery of, this farmer who's out in the field or out, you know, in the heat of the sun, and the connection between that heat and the chrome, and how could he love that, because it's got to be hot if it's shining and he's there in that reflection.
yeah,
And there's almost a pain to that that really kind of is the opposite of that love,
yep, yep,
which gives the love even more power, because there's so much pain in keeping a piece of farm equipment shining.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Yep. Nice job.
Hey, if I could say something about, uh, I really liked what you called the formality,
Yeah, yeah,
meaning the form.
right, right, right.
Um, I think that the fact that what LR put down here is in past tense, it's intentional, and it's evocative. And I'm saying it's past tense, and that's the form that it was a formal choice instead of present tense.
Yep,
And so we have two words right next to each other that are very emotional to me. Uh, one putting it liked in past tense, and then always suggests that is a duration of relationship
I love it.
with me and Uncle Bill, and his chrome,
Yep,
his fancy for chrome. And so to me, that's where a lot of the emotion is coming from, because we're saying this is an enduring relationship, both with me and Uncle Bill, as well as Uncle Bill and chrome.
yeah,
And both of those are formal choices that LR did intuitively, I think.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Love it. So I wonder, Rashida, would you? I love what we have going on. Would you care to give a crack at adding something to this poem we're developing?
Sure. Uncle Bill always liked the shine of chrome. I want to explore more of the shine, and connect that.
Yeah,
Uncle Bill always liked the shine of chrome in his face, because when you
uh-huh.
Loved where you were going before when said, it's and I see where you're going with that. And I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I was so
oh, no,
happy.
no, no, no. No, because it's all of that emotion, because even now, knowing that liked was something that we know, it's not now, it was, and we're thinking back on that, and connecting that pain, because I still think that's there, because I've I've been outside on a farm in the heat, and I know that it's a painful thing, or it can be. So Uncle Bill always liked the shine of chrome.
You said something about his face. What do you?
Oh, this is so much harder. I can feel it.
Yeah, no, because
I
what
know.
you're
I
feeling,
remember that
what you're
too.
feeling is meaning. I feel it too.
His face.
What about the face?
Uncle Bill always liked the shine of chrome. His face never wavered under the sun. I want to describe the sun more.
Yeah.
His his reflection never wavered.
One of the things I like about this so far, we started with a piece of farming equipment. Farm equipment isn't in here anymore directly.
It's almost like the farm equipment is important, but has nothing to do with what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
his
to
face never
so
wavered.
having said that, let me say that Chrome is a splurge that is completely unnecessary. And if you have a utensil farm equipment and you decide to put extra money into something as unnecessary as Chrome,
And didn't get it muddy out there, right? Yeah.
to me that's the symbol, that's the symbology here.
Yeah.
You know, what is it? Why would you do something just to be showy with a piece of utilitarian equipment?
Yeah.
And
That is
so
next. But
so to me that's what this is about.
Yeah. Okay, listen.
and Lisa Renee, I love radiant heat and not the sun. His face never wavered under the radiant heat.
Because you know how that
An
radiant heat always looks
unnecessary.
really weird, and you can't really define the edges of shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rashida, go ahead and complete it. His face never wavered under the radiant heat.
And I love what we were where you were going with the unnecessariness of it. Why would you? This thing that really is functional, why would it be blinged out? Why would it be
Yeah, and to me it's got to be something about
Radiant
pride,
heat of
you know.
an unnecessary because it's not necessary. So under the radiant heat, an unnecessary,
unpredictability,
it's
uh,
almost like a
gamble.
torture.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's almost like I you guys hear me okay? I got some weirdness there.
Spend the extra, not giving you a return.
Yeah, how does that connect?
I almost wonder.
Well, I guess if you could explain a little bit more about what you were talking about. Before I might have interrupted you when I said unpredictability. You were saying, why are you doing this? What are you getting out of it? So maybe you were going down that line and I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it is. This dialogue is just so inspiring. I love it. So it's not an interruption at all.
So let me tell you what
I was thinking. Oh,
I,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm going to jump in because we are at 8 o'clock and we're not quite finished yet. I see something here that I think I can do a little something with, and that is this. I agree. He loves the shine of chrome, but something about the meaning we're trying to make here is about his farm work that probably is more associated with rust than chrome. What if I did something like this? But his face never wavered under the radiant heat of a rusted out Massey Ferguson. And I'm probably not doing Ferguson right. And he had to wait until the work was done to enjoy the
You
the Corvette. So I took it a totally different way. But you see what we're all doing, and by the way, I think I'm having a problem with my network connection, so I'm going to move to a different place where I can make sure I'm a little closer. But what you see I did there was to grab in, try to make some meaning with concrete images. And to me, there's only one thing this poem is really missing. Anybody want to take a gander at what that might be? What are we missing?
Rhymes and line breaks.
So some of those formal things, right? We said a poem generally wants to do some formal items. So I could do something like this. Uncle Bill always liked the shine of chrome, but his face never wavered under the radiant heat of a rusted out Massey Ferguson. And I'm going to hit a period there. He had to wait until the work was done to enjoy the Corvette. Waiting for him at the end of the drive. Now look, there's nothing perfect or special or wonderful about that. But what it's doing, what we've done here together is taken a stab at taking something we believe, putting some formality to it, getting specific, engaging the senses, and trying to turn that what I believe into an experience for a reader. I think that's what poetry is. Yeah. There's another person, and James, I'm just going to ask, can you hear me okay? We working here? You got me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Because what I wanted to do, so here's our poem. Uncle Bill always liked the shine of chrome. One of the things that line sentences do is it slows you down and makes you sort of cherish every line. But his face never wavered under the radiant heat of a rusted out Massey Ferguson. He had to wait until the work was done to enjoy the Corvette, waiting for him at the end of the drive. So this is what a poem does. It tries to evoke that feeling. It tries to make some meaning, even if that meaning's a little bit vague. I like what we're seeing here.
So
yeah.
could even take it. He had to wait until the work was done to enjoy the Corvette, still sitting up on those blocks.
Yes, even better, sitting up on the blocks, because
because he's not going to go drive a Corvette. He's too invested. He just spent $800,000 on a tractor.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So that's where the meaning goes. I want to give you one more example of someone else who did this. It's really the same poem. So if our poem was this, our poem was farm equipment is important. That's a prose. Farm equipment is important. And what we did was to turn this one there. And yes, that last line clearly should be sitting up on the blocks. I love it. Here's another poem that was created from the prose. Farm equipment is important. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. Now, I think that poem, which you probably recognize as the Red Wheelbarrow from William Carlos Williams, is just an example of what a poem can do to make meaning. I think I agree with where we landed, that farm equipment is important is not a poem, but so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens, I think, is a poetic way of saying farm equipment is important. I don't know exactly how. Like James said, it's not science writing, right? It didn't clarify all of its points, but it did this thing. There's playfulness or experimentation with the form. There's some rhyme. It's not end rhyme, but listen to the words. So much depends upon. Lots of
Yeah.
things there. Red
Yeah.
wheelbarrow, kind of an extension of vowels, glazed with rainwater, right? So there's rhyme in there. And of course, there's this formal thing where if my eyes don't deceive me, I think I see four wheelbarrows, right? It turned the stanzas into a visual of a wheelbarrow. It's very fun, very playful, but gets at this meaning in an economical way. Doesn't even use a period or any capitalizations. It's really interesting.
It reminds me of how children's books are written.
Yeah, right. Roald Dahl kind of took a lot from William Carlos Williams, who was one of the first experimental early American poets. And this was 1918, which was the era we call modernism, which said we're going to play with language in a way that creates a sense of place and feeling and being. I want to thank you so much for playing a part, being a part of this community. Thanks for exploring the kind of the feelings about what makes poetry interesting and really what poetry is. Now, each night from Tuesday from February through March, we're going to meet online and talk about a different poem. So I hope you'll be able to join us each night on a Tuesday at 7 p.m. And I'd love for you to email me as well. And let me know you're going to be there. You can email me at jenglish, Jenglish, at centura.edu, centura.edu. Go ahead and drop me an email. Let me know that you'll be joining us on Tuesday night, and I look forward to seeing you online live where we go through another poem, talk about how it's important and meaningful, and do writing for ourselves. I can't wait to see you on Tuesday night.